podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us back for another little news update. We've got loads to bring you up to date on in the world of Sunderland. Joining me once again is Johnny Hawley. Hello mate.
All right, Gav, becoming a bit of a regular occurrence, this, isn't it?
It is indeed. Chris has taken the decision to go on a holiday, God forbid, and we've taken over the podcast. So he'll be back at the weekend, though I'm sure the listeners will be glad to hear he will be available and around for the West Brom game. So, news, loads going on. I say loads going on. I have to do a bit of digging and make sure there is loads going on. So we're not just talking shite and putting filler out there for the dear listeners of ours. Régis Le Bris, he held a press conference ahead of the West Brom game with the assorted media, with Nick Barnes asking questions from BBC Radio Newcastle, friend of the pod, Nick Barnes. And on the agenda, well, there was a bunch of things which we've actually already talked about this week, but it was interesting to get his perspective on things. First and foremost, Tommy Watson's move to Brighton. Now, this was interesting because it's probably the first time I've heard Régis Le Bris give a bit of an opinion on something. He didn't sit on the fence and just coast through the press conference on this particular topic. I'm not saying he laid into Tommy Watson or anything, but it was interesting to hear him say that the timing wasn't ideal of this. And which it isn't. It isn't. Evidently, it isn't. Nobody wants to have a player sold in the middle of the season who's then got to stay on the books and be a part of the team for the rest of the season. But he did say this. He said, we have to accept the situation. The timing is not ideal. At the same time, we know Tommy had many offers from Premier League clubs. We declined. We tried to renew his contract, but it wasn't possible. It was his decision, and he stressed this a number of times. It was his decision, not the club's decision. We have to move on, and hopefully it will be a positive for the club in the end. And he was actually asked by Nick about the sort of conversation going on with fans about, you know, should he feature as part of the team and stuff. And he did sit on the fence with that one and say, well, he's a professional and, you know, he's ready to compete and all this and that and the other. But interesting stuff, wasn't it? Because we haven't heard from the manager on this. And obviously, being a manager, he's probably not very happy that this is happening at such a crucial point in the season.
Yeah, and particularly after Watson had been out injured for so long as well. Like, everyone was buzzing for him to come back and be in the first team picture again. So for this to happen near enough straight away as soon as he's back, really, in the grand scheme of things, is not great, is it? And it definitely was interesting and worth kind of remarking on that, how much he did stress that this was Tommy Watson's decision. We wanted to keep him. We really tried. And specifically mentioning that he's had offers from Premier League clubs, plural, over the past couple of windows as well. It felt to me like half shifting the responsibility off the club and also half basically painting the picture of like, look, it's not just Brighton. There's been multiple offers. There's been people in his ear, almost a what can we do about it sort of thing. Yeah. Which I think is fair enough, really, when you look at it, because it's not wrong, is it? If you're an 18-year-old and there's a Premier League team willing to come in and, you know, chuck reportedly 10 plus million quid at your club for you, you'd imagine they're going to be paying him a decent whack when he joins up with them in the summer. So it makes sense, but yeah, it was definitely out of character, I think, for Le Bris to be so, you know, forthright about what he thinks about that situation. Because like you say, normally he's just kind of, well, it is interesting.
I like that impression, by the way. Very good.
Look, I didn't get in 100 grand a student debt to speak French, not to whack out a French impression on the podcast, all right?
He also stressed that the club creates an environment for young players to thrive, but everyone's different, and Tommy has made a decision. It's not ours, but we have to accept it. Fair enough. You know, we've said this on the pod this week repeatedly that this is still a net positive for the football club because, one, we get a lot of money for a player who's barely played. Two, it shows not just players in the academy, but young players that we go out and sign, that the club does have a pathway. So it's not just you come to Sunderland and you're here to die and stay here like a lot of players used to back in the day. It's you can come to Sunderland and it opens up doors for you in your career. If this isn't the end destination, if there's better offers out there, then we can facilitate it. We're not going to be bent over and we're not going to take whatever they give us. We will get a good deal for you, but we aren't going to hold players to ransom. So yeah, I think, look, we've talked a lot about Tommy Watson this week. There's loads of stuff on the website too. I would encourage people to read that. But the big thing for me and the interesting thing for me, which is something he wouldn't be drawn on particularly, is how much of a part does he play from this point? Now Lefay's back. Now Mundell's back to full fitness. You've got Milan Alexic who can play out on the left as well. You know, Eliza Mienda even. There are other players who can play his position. And it is, in the words of Le Bris, it's going to be interesting to see the direction with Watson from this point. Because, and this is something that I think Martin really touched on the other day on the pod, is that I'm not entirely sure I want to see him involved all that much now. Martin likened it to effectively having a player on loan. And it is a bit like that, you know. So it is going to be really interesting beyond sort of from the West Brom game onwards to see how much he actually plays a part. Because what's your gut feeling? Mine's that he might not play that much now.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he ever starts a game where there's any other viable option also fit. I wouldn't rule out him making some appearances off the bench, maybe, because he's still a talented player, and you know we don't want to develop him at the cost of our own because we know he's leaving. But there is still an immediate aim of trying to gain promotion and win the playoffs. So if it came down to it, and let's say we're in the playoff semis or the playoff final, and Mundell takes a horrible challenge and goes down and he needs to come off. If you're just purely thinking about winning that game, you can easily make an argument that Tommy Watson should be the guy coming on the pitch. So I don't want him frozen out completely because I don't think that helps anyone. But yeah, I'm with you and with Martin as well. Like, in the same way that you wouldn't prioritise another club's loan player over your own, I don't think you should be. He should be behind everybody else in the pecking order by default, basically, just for that alone. Ignoring how good he is or isn't as a player, you know, people can have their own opinions on that. But yeah, just from a purely self-serving standpoint, from the club's point of view, you've got to look after yourself. You know, number one comes first. So yeah, I'd be surprised if he starts any more games.
Yeah, in better news, he confirmed that Leo Hjelde and Enzo Lefay would be part of the squad this weekend, which is what we were expecting that. He did hint that would be the case. Obviously, the pair of them would have had to get through training this week and be fine. Interesting, though, would you start either of them? Given, you know, we don't have another left-back technically. Trey Hume was fantastic there the other day. Alan Brown played very well at right-back. Enzo Lefay, I mean, it depends how much he's trained, but if he's been in full training all week and possibly over the international break, he might be ready to start a game and the temptation will be there. But, you know, we have talked about this again a fair bit recently about managing players, making sure they're right for the playoffs and stuff. So what's your thoughts on what might actually happen there?
I think what'll actually happen is also what I would do. And I think I'd treat Lefay with kid gloves for another week or so. And yeah, put him on the bench, have him in the squad, bring him on in the second half, totally fine. But I just think when you've got a player as good as him, who's already obviously had one injury, the absolute last thing you want to do is take any sort of risk at all, because the benefit of 3 points against West Brom is nothing compared to the benefit of having him fit and firing for the playoffs. Hjelde, though, I think that's a much tougher one to call, because obviously, you know, we've got no numbers at fullback, really. He's one of vanishingly few. So I would want to see him straight back in over Lefay, because I think we need him a bit more right now. But
he has the interesting bit, though. We're playing again Tuesday. We know Trey Hume's managing an injury, and it's quite possible that at the minute, given we don't know a lot about this hip problem that Trey Hume's carrying, but if it's fairly serious, if it's serious enough for him not to train, then they might look at this and go 2 games in, 4 days, 3 days. Hjelde's going to have to start one of those potentially.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that he's going to start one of the next 2 games at least.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like with the game on Tuesday being round the corner, it complicated because it's not as simple as going, oh, well, whichever one you play on Saturday, then the other one's got a week's rest in between and all that. I think because of, again, I mean, we've talked about it many times, trying to kind of treat this as a mini pre-season for the playoffs. I would rather see our strongest possible 11 minus Lefebvre against West Brom, and then take our chances on the Tuesday night with somebody else having to fill in. Maybe O'Nien slides across to left back and we do something with that, because the points aren't really what matters. I'd rather see as good a team as we can feasibly put out against West Brom, because otherwise you lose that advantage of having a bit of a barometer of that game to see where we are against them. But like you say, if Trey Hume's hip injury that he's carrying is enough to make him not be able to train, then it could easily end up being the case that you've kind of got to go, one of them plays in one of the games and the other one plays in the other game, so that we've got something resembling a back four for each of them, rather than a back four in one and some sort of Frankenstein creation in the other game.
Yeah. The other thing he talked about was the penalty situation, and again was asked outright who the new penalty taker is, or who is going to take penalties going forward for Sunderland, and he just wouldn't reveal. He said it's a secret and laughed. But he did say that the leadership group had met and it had been discussed, and the players will be made very clear who the next penalty taker is and who's responsible. So at least, this is something I said again at the weekend. It had to be nipped in the bud this week. We had to work out what was going to happen, because, as has been mentioned to Le Bris, we could feasibly, in sort of a month and a bit, we could be playing in a playoff campaign where we need penalty kick takers, and that was a mess last week. But he actually said that it could be turning a negative into a positive, because the situations arose, it's brought it to the forefront of our attention, and we're now addressing it. Whereas had we not got a penalty, had that ridiculousness not unfolded, we would have possibly not had this discussion. So, he wouldn't be drawn on it, but he did say it was a secret. At least they've talked about it. I'm praying we get a penalty at the weekend, because it would be great just to get that one out the way, done. Don't have to think about it for a couple of months or a month or so. But yeah, I mean, who would you pick? Who would be your penalty kick taker going forward? Because there's a number of names. I mean, even though it felt like we didn't have a penalty kick taker on the pitch the other day, I think you could make a serious case for a bunch of them. So I'm wondering what you would do.
If we get a penalty before the playoffs, I'd give it to Isidore, because I don't think his 2 penalties against Burnley were bad penalties.
No, they weren't. No.
I think his mistake was for the second penalty going the same exact route as he did the first time. I was screaming at the telly, like, please just put it in the other side, which is easy to say after the fact. But if it's before the playoffs, I'd like Isidore to take it, because I think there's just something about your striker having the confidence to be the one to step up and take a penalty. I think to me, that's the ideal situation. And they should be the best strikers of the football. Now, if it goes into the playoffs and he hasn't scored yet since Burnley, then it's a different conversation. I think beyond him, you're looking at Mundle is probably the one with the best technique from what we can see. I know Patrick Roberts has scored one this season, but also rather famously missed the one at Bramall Lane. So we'll leave that. But yeah, for me, Isidore, then Mundle, in that order would be my preference. And then behind them, I reckon Job would be a good penalty taker. But above and beyond everything else, I just want them to know who it's going to be before they step.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You just can't have, like you say, it was an absolute shambles last week, wasn't it? You can't have scenes like that happening again. Like, God forbid we get a 90th minute penalty in the playoff final, and then the players are sort of looking around, scratching their heads, thinking, oh, shit, one of us is going to take this now. As long as it's sorted out in advance, that's the main thing. I'm almost not even bothered if they miss the next one. As long as whoever it is just goes straight over, picks the ball up and bloody puts it on the spot.
Yeah. We had another game of opposition praise bingo with Régis Le Bris today. He said they're a good team who are good in possession and very organised. I think he says that about every single team we play.
Yeah, this must be the most organised division in the whole of Europe, according to Le Bris.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be honest, these press conferences, I think for the likes of Nick Barnes, who's got to go on first and ask questions, I think it must be tough, because he doesn't give anything away, does he? He gives very, very little away. Beyond, I mean, the Tommy Watson thing this week is an anomaly, because we don't have something as big as that talk about most weeks. But generally, beyond the injury news, he doesn't really have anything to say that's of value to the press. You know, it's not like when Alex Neil was there and Tony Mowbray, and you could get a million sound bites out of them. He watches what he says, and I don't mind that, actually. I don't want him giving too much away ahead of a game. I mean, he wouldn't even give away who would take a penalty if we got one on Saturday, so he does keep his cards close to his chest, but it must be tough. And what I find myself doing after I watch the press conferences is kind of asking, what would I have asked today? And
it's a hard game to play, that, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's a few things I would like updates on. Like, I would like to know how far away Niall Huggins potentially is. I would like to know seriously what's going on with Jayden Danns. Like, do the club think he is going to kick a ball for Sunderland this season?
Yeah, is he ever going to step foot in the Academy of Light again?
Yeah. Things like that. We don't hear much about, really, and I think it would be good. Things like, you clearly decided not to go with one of Joe Anderson or Ollie Bainbridge last week, and we were talking about this last week. We were saying, I was quite happy for Ollie Bainbridge to start the game last week. In the end, what we got, I was more than happy with. But like these things around the periphery that we don't really hear him talk about, I think I would like to hear more about, or at least brought up.
And I think it's easier for Le Bris to answer those sorts of questions as well, because there's not an immediate disadvantage in giving that information away. Yeah. Like something like asking about the fullback situation for the last game's perfect, because the game's gone now. Millwall get no advantage if he says why he did or didn't pick Ollie Bainbridge or Anderson, or why Hume played there or whatever. It's just things that we as fans want to understand, because we want to get to know the manager's thinking as well, because the last thing you want is the manager to rock up before the next game and say, here's the 11, and here's the subs, and here's the tactics, and here's the set piece takers, because then you just get battered every week. Yeah. But yeah, all that sort of tertiary stuff that's kind of floating around in the background, I agree, that would be much, much better to hear about, because it's interesting, and you're 1,000 times more likely to get an answer, because you're right as well. Le Bris is playing the kind of press game expertly, isn't he?
Yeah.
He gives nothing away, but he doesn't seem to piss people off, like, because he's just so calm and affable all the time. So hats off to Le Bris for that, because the English media is not an easy beast.
No. Other news then, we've announced a new partnership, ticketing partner, SeatGeek, who I'd never heard of before, but apparently they also work with Liverpool, Manchester City, amongst others. I think ticketing's been a bugbear of supporters for a long time now. I think the whole Ticketmaster relationship, and they didn't outright name Ticketmaster in this announcement, which was interesting. They just said clubs existing ticketing partner. They didn't actually say who they were. But I think it's been a bone of contention, hasn't it? And despite being promised a load of improvements by the club when they introduced Ticketmaster, I don't think we've seen any tangible benefit. No. So this is interesting, because things like queues at the turnstiles, the problems the club are having with people going in with the wrong tickets, or purposely using kids' tickets when they're adults, not being able to get through to a ticket office employee and speak to somebody, not being able to navigate the website properly because the ticket maps are crap and all that. All these things which really do affect your experience of being a supporter when you're just trying to do something really straightforward, like get an answer from a real person or buy a ticket online, has been made incredibly difficult. I would say since we probably dropped into League One.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's been a long time. So this can only be a good thing, because if the club have done their work, and one thing David Bruce has done since he came in is think long and hard about the partnerships the club makes with people. I mean, it was mentioned in his statement. He said, throughout the last 12 months, we've partnered with organisations who share our passion for putting supporters first. That was important, because I would suggest that when whatever deal they signed with Ticketmaster way back when, that wasn't done with the supporters' interests put first, which is why there were so many problems. I mean, from the off, there was it was like an Olympic type of communication coming out of the club from Steve Davison when it came to like older fans who were struggling with the technology and things like that. It then fell on the BLC to support fans. So for me, this can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And it's right as well to point out how much of a focus there has been on the fans when they've been making these partnerships since Bruce came in. God, it feels weird to say something positive with the words when Bruce came in at Sunderland. Just remember 2011. But yeah, like, because you think about the Hummel deal as well. Hummel aren't one of the biggest kit manufacturers. You know, they're not Adidas, they're not Nike or whoever. But look at the kits they've made. Look at the retro stuff they've made. It's all been fully fan focused. And Ticketmaster, I mean, people hate Ticketmaster anyway for various reasons, but they're one of the global giants of ticketing. So they don't care about what experience bloody Championship Sunderland's fans have got when they get tickets. They don't give a monkeys. Whereas somebody a bit smaller, and look, the jury will still be out on these, you know, SeatGeek guys because we haven't used them yet, but you've got to assume that that fan liaison and interaction is going to have to be further at the top of their priority list, because that just tends to be the way, doesn't it? If you get a smaller business that you're working with, the customer support can be a lot more personal because you're not just one of a billion customers, you're one of a much smaller pool. So yeah, I think it has to be a positive because the experience with Ticketmaster has been so bad. Almost anything's going to be an improvement. Now I'm crossing my fingers and touching wood while I say that for the listeners, but yeah, I was going to say I'm excited by it. That's a bit over the top for a ticketing announcement, but I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, the club did say that supporters are advised that the 2025-26 season ticket purchase and renewal process will continue to be facilitated by the club's existing ticketing partner. It's funny because while you were talking there, one of the lads in our Rotor Report WhatsApp group chat is having problems renewing his season ticket. Says the wheel just keeps spinning on the screen. So, I mean, how's that for timing? Other bits and bobs in the news. Remember Alexandre Mendy? That's a name we've not heard in a little while. The centre forward who looked like he was going to sign for us, and then the club kind of gave up on him, and he didn't give up on the club. And he spent the whole of August twerking for us and didn't get a move to Sunderland. Ended up staying in League Two with Caen. That's how you say the name of the team he plays for. They're now rock bottom of that division on 19 points, 8 points behind the nearest team, and almost certainly going down. He's played 25 games this season, scored 8 goals in that division. So it hasn't went to plan for him in many ways this year. And the reason I bring him up is because he was back in the news when it came to Sunderland anyways, because after they lost 4-2 to Paris FC on Monday, he was asked about the state of their season, and he said, it's a reflection of our season. I'm speaking for myself, but when you start a new season with bad energy, everyone knows what happened during the transfer window for several players. This is what we're seeing today. We'll fight until the end, but you only reap what you sow. Do you reckon he's a little bit bitter about not getting that move to Sunderland?
Yeah, he doesn't seem happy, does he? I mean, they're the words of a man who really doesn't want to be there beyond the summer, because you can't come out and start saying that you reap what you sow, clearly referring to the ownership, and expect everything to just be hunky-dory come the start of next season. I think we'd have all heard his name a lot more this season if Wilson Isidore wasn't on double figures.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a good bloody job we've not heard about him, because the only way we would be if we were struggling. Where
it'd have been a bit like Ellis Sims last season.
Yeah,
everyone was banging on about him.
It would have been exactly that. Yeah, and it is mad though when you do think back to last summer and how every day people were, we were hashtag Mendy Watch was happening on Twitter, and we had people looking at flights and all that palaver, like back in the Prem days almost, with cans for Jan and that. But yeah, like it just seems like it all really fizzled out, didn't it?
Yeah,
because he's not, like you say, he's not setting the world on fire there. So I want to be consigned to the dustbin of Neely men of Sunderland AFC. Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yeah. You'll probably feature on some list on our website in about 5 years, and we'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about him. Goal of the month for March, the club have put that out to tender. The nominees for March's goal of the month are Eliza Mayenda's goal against Cardiff at home, Romain Mundo's goal against Preston at home, Trey Hume's goal against Millwall last week, and then another two, Finn Geragusian's goal against Leeds under-21s, and a goal for Libby McInnes for the women's team against Durham. I mean, I've not seen two of those goals, but I mean,
Yeah.
Mundo's goal is arguably goal of the season. No, my month.
It's arguably going to be up there for goal of the season of the league.
Yeah.
It could easily be nominated. It was that good. That's going to win, isn't it? It's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, the Trey Hume one was a cracking goal, and to be honest, I've forgotten the Mayenda one. What did he do?
I'm exactly the same. I kind of picture the Mayenda one. I mean, so it can't be anywhere near the other two.
No, I mean, the fact I can't remember it probably says it's not going to win in my mind anyways, but yeah, I think it's pretty easy to guess which one's going to win that, and I haven't seen two of them. I mean, Libby McInnes's goal against Durham could have been a volley from the edge of her own box for all I know. I didn't see it.
It probably need to beat Mundell.
Yeah. Couple of other little bits, and I think this is sort of second-hand information, but it looks like the new footbridge from the Stadium of Light to the town will be open in time for the new season, as the club or the council, have announced that it will feature as part of a display ahead of the Women's Rugby World Cup, which is being hosted at the Stadium of Light. One game is anyways in August. That game falls on a Saturday, I think, so that means we'll be away that weekend, and I think it's the 22nd, and the season starts slightly earlier this year. So it probably means we're going to be away on the opening day of the season, if you read between the lines. So there's one to keep at the back of your mind when planning what you're going to do later in the season, later in the year, even depending on which league we're in. Quite possible we'll start away from home. And finally, a couple of little bits. Bristol City away tickets are on sale on Good Friday. I was shocked by how short notice this is. It's like 2 weeks away. But we've been allocated 3,414 tickets, 35 quid a pop for adults. I mean, I know we charge probably something similar to that, but every time I say that, I just think, Jesus,
it's a bit steep, in it? Like,
yeah, they're very, very steep. 32 quid for seniors, 32 for under 25s, 28 quid for under 22s, 16 quid for under 19s, and £10 for under 12s. So if you've got a baby face, try and get a kids ticket and see if you get through. Phase 1 starts at 40 Black Cats points, Phase 2 25, and then Phase 3 is 10 points. So it might even go to general sale. That's a lot of tickets. We'll see. It's down south and that, and you never know. But I'm not planning to go to that one. I don't suppose you are, Johnny, are you?
If it goes to general sale, I might have a look, but I'm not sure how much I fancy the train down to Bristol, because it's pretty long.
It's meant to be a decent away day, that.
But I tell you what, though, just on them prices as well, what is the point of under 25s being £3 cheaper?
Yeah, I know.
Come on, lads. Sort that out. Bristol City, this is a public service announcement. Sort out your bloody ticket pricing, will you?
What's that, 6-7 categories of pricing? I think that's a bit weird. Last but not least, the under-21s play at the Stadium of Light on Friday night. So if you're horny for a bit of football action, get yourself along to the Stadium of Light on Friday night. Season card holders get in for nout. If you're not a season card holder, it's £3 for adults, £1 for under-16s. The club have actually made a bit of a push for this to try and get fans in. Graham Murty did an interview with the club website, which people can dig out if they want to find it on safc.com. He did say the fans play a huge part in the identity of this club, and to have their support will mean the world to the players. It's a great chance for them to see the next generation in action and hopefully witness some exciting football along the way. So I might go along to that. I've got out on Friday night. Oh, no, we've got a Twitter space. So that segues me by accident nicely into the bit I want to end on, which is that Friday Night Live will be back this week over on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. That's our live podcast, which takes place on X. It'll be live from 8 p.m. on Friday night. Johnny will be in the host chair because I plan on walking me dogs at the same time, and it's a bit hard to do everything fiddly. So I'll be there. I'll be a part of it, but I'll also be pounding the pavements, walking around the main streets of East Polden, as per usual. There will be a cavalcade of other Roker reporters involved. So if you can't get enough of podcasts at the minute, we've got a live one coming up Friday night. There'll probably be football on the telly, but the commentary will be shite. So put that on mute. Stick us on your phone or your PC or tablet or whatever. We'll provide the soundtrack of whatever game you've got on in the background, talking more about Sunderland. There'll be other voices on that you haven't heard in a little while from the team. We'll even grab some listeners. If you want to come on, you can request to speak. We'll get you involved. All that good stuff. We might even try and rope in a West Brom fan if there's any listening to chat. If you can't join us live, though, the plan is to put these on the pod feeds as well. We haven't done that before. But after the show is over, I will try and scrape together the audio from it, and we'll put it out on the pod feeds, and it'll give you something else to listen to ahead of the game on Saturday, so that you're just not missing us. I think there's a few people are becoming Howie the podcast addicts these days. We're here and everyone's loving the sheer volume of content. So if you can't get enough of us, there will be probably another show. I'm saying probably because I've never done it before, but I'm pretty certain I can do it. So we should have another show out on Saturday, basically late Friday, early Saturday. There should be potentially another 2 hours of audio. So if you're really sick of us, then just don't bother. But if you're happy to hear more from me, Jonny, and the rest of the gang, then we'll be back with that. Looking forward to it, Jonny.
Can't wait. It's actually been too long since I've done a Friday Night Live, so I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, things got in the way. So our international break, we were launching this new venture with the podcast and all that, and just things have been very, very busy for us. But the plan is to try and do these every Friday, at least when Sunderland aren't playing. Although we're doing this towards the end of the season when there's very little football left to play, and I think if we stay fourth, we should be playing on the Friday night, the first leg of the playoffs, I think. So there might be the odd clash like that where we're playing and we're obviously not going to record a podcast while there's a game on, but give or take, if there's no Sunderland game on a Friday night, you should be able to hear us every single week from 8 o'clock. Make sure you just head over to our Twitter page. Even if you're not a Twitter user, you should be able to listen to those. And like I say, if you can't catch them live, we'll be able to hear those on the feeds. There's a bunch of other stuff from this week. We've virtually had a podcast out every day this week. There's the match preview that me and Jonny recorded at the start of the week with Adrian Goldberg. That was a good chat for half an hour or so. We did dig into the depths of his mind, and he told us all about how he hosts a podcast with Charlie Methven, which might interest some of you. We also talked about the West Brom game, of course, Tony Mowbray, Josh Madger, Callum Stiles. That was good to hear somebody who actually likes him. So catch up on that. And there's been a bunch of other stuff this week. So if you've only just found us, please subscribe. There's loads more to come, loads of pods coming out. We've got, there should be a reaction pod after the game as well. That'll be me, Chris, and maybe somebody else, not sure who. And on Sunday, we will be recording with Phil Smith of the Sunderland Echo. And then on Monday, because we play again Tuesday, we should have a match preview with a Norwich fan. So loads and loads coming up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you grab us wherever you can. That's enough of the plugs. I think I've banged on long enough. Cheers, Jonny. Thanks again, mate.
Thank you very much, Gav.
Thanks to the listeners. Like I say, we'll be back with Twitter Spaces on Friday night and back on the feeds late Friday night, early Saturday morning. So make sure you catch us then. We'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.